So Prince Louis and Princess Charlotte just had their entire world turned upside down in a single afternoon at Adelaide Cottage. And the part that really sticks with me isn't the announcement itself. It's the wooden toy train, the one just sitting there abandoned on the rug. Because that detail, whether it's exactly true or not, tells you everything about what actually happened here. 1 minute, this little boy is playing by the bay window, laughing down the hallway, normal Sunday stuff. And the next minute, a nanny is quietly gathering up his things and guiding both kids toward a sitting room where their parents are waiting with news that's about to change everything. And the heavy oak door closes behind them. That's the image. That's the moment the protective bubble around these two kids went from standard royal privacy to something completely different. Before we get into it, just real quick, if you want more royal updates like this, hit subscribe to Crown Watch. We break this stuff down every week. All right, back to it. So here's what actually went down. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, sat her two youngest children down on the sofa directly beside her and gave them the truth about her health situation before a single word could leak to the press. William was standing near the mantelpiece, and the kids apparently knew something was wrong just from the look on his face. These are children who've been trained since birth to read a room, to understand when the energy shifts, and Charlotte especially, at 10 years old, she looked at her mother with what's being described as immediate concern, not confusion. Concern, which tells me she'd already been picking up on things. Kids always do. And Louis, he's still young enough that the medical terminology probably went right over his head, but he reacted to the tone, the heavy emotional weight in his parents' voices, that carefree energy everyone always talks about with him, the way he bounces around and fly past and makes faces on the balcony, that evaporated, just like that. And now the palace is saying his behavior inside the home has shifted noticeably. He's quieter, he stays closer to his mother's side, he's seeking physical reassurance in a way he didn't before, which is exactly what you'd expect from a child his age processing something he can't fully articulate. What's interesting to me about how this was handled is the timing. They told the kids on a Sunday, at home, in private, with no staff beyond the absolute essential people present, no courtiers, no private secretaries, no PR advisors sitting in a corner taking notes. This meeting was completely unlisted on any official palace log. That's deliberate. That's William and Catherine drawing a line and saying, this part belongs to us. Not to the institution, not to the public, not to the media. And honestly, that's a pretty radical departure from how these things have been handled historically. Because here's the thing about royal protocol in previous generations. When health crises hit the family, children were often the last to know. They'd be kept at a distance, managed by nannies, told vague reassurances while the adults handled everything behind closed doors. The formal distance between parents and children in the old system meant that hard conversations simply didn't happen until absolutely necessary. William and Catherine have completely rejected that framework. They told their kids directly, honestly, and early. They anchored them with facts before the rumor mill could do it for them. And the reasoning there is pretty clear. A controlled truth is better than external chaos. You can't protect your kids from every difficult thing, but you can make sure they hear it from you first, in a safe space, with the people they trust most. The immediate aftermath inside the cottage was apparently intense. Staff members who've worked with the family for years were walking on eggshells. The usual banter between the protection team and the domestic staff just stopped. Everyone shifted into this quiet, focused professionalism, and within minutes of the meeting ending, security protocols were already being updated. Encrypted radio channels, adjusted travel arrangements, a protection officer adjusting the blinds on the principal vehicle to block long-range lenses. They knew the kids would be emotional getting into the car, and they weren't about to let some photographer capture that moment from a mile away. Now, let's talk about what this actually means for Charlotte and Louis on a practical day-to-day level, because the changes are way more extensive than just having a hard conversation at home. The school run, which used to be this one pocket of normalcy for them, has been completely restructured. We're told that instead of pulling up to the standard drop-off point near the playing fields like every other family, the green SUV now gets directed to a restricted service lane behind the administrative building. A senior security officer scans the perimeter before the doors open. The kids step out onto tarmac, not gravel, and they enter through a back route that keeps them away from the main flow of students. That's a massive shift. And the school itself, Lambrook, had to get involved. There was an urgent briefing between Palace Protection Command and the school's board of directors. The objective was to build what they're calling a total media wall around the children without making them feel like prisoners in their own schoolyard, which sounds almost impossible, frankly. How do you enforce that level of security without the kids feeling the weight of it every single moment? Charlotte apparently handles it by staying noticeably close to Louis during breaks. She helps him adjust his school tie. She makes sure he stays within the designated safety zones monitored by their plainclothes security team. At 10 years old, she's already functioning as a second set of eyes. And here's where it gets really complicated. The digital environment. Because you can control the physical perimeter of a school, but you cannot control what other students see on their phones at home, what parents discuss at dinner tables, what older siblings post on social media. The palace has deployed a digital monitoring team that scans platforms around the clock, tracking any mentions of the school or the children's activities, but they can't catch everything. A crumpled printout of an unverified online article was found in a recycling bin at the school. A teacher confiscated it from older students near the sports pavilion. The outside noise had breached the perimeter, and then there was the incident in art class. Louis was sitting at a corner table working on a watercolor painting of the woods around the Berkshire estate. Two older pupils at the next desk were whispering and glancing at him. He didn't look up, but his movements got slower. His brush hovered over the water jar. That's the subtle stuff. That's the pressure these kids are under that nobody sees. Even in a protected environment, even with all the security in the world, they know they're being talked about. They can feel it. The school responded by implementing a temporary ban on personal digital devices during school hours, framed as a wellness initiative to improve concentration. Smart move. It doesn't single out the royal children, but it achieves exactly what needed to happen. They also started running morning assemblies on digital literacy and empathy, teaching students about separating private lives from public entertainment. Again, smart, you're not punishing anyone. You're educating the entire community in a way that protects the most vulnerable kids in the room without ever naming them. The emotional management of all this falls heavily on William. He's been sitting down with Charlotte on the evenings after these schoolyard incidents, giving her space to ask questions about things she might have overheard. And this is important because Charlotte's maturity is a double-edged sword. She's observant, she's poised, she's often praised for how she handles public events, but that same awareness means she absorbs more tension than Louis does. She notices the whispers, she reads the headlines she's not supposed to see. William's approach has been to anchor her in the facts of the situation, to make sure her understanding of her mother's recovery is based on reality, not on the dramatic narratives floating around online. And Louis, his processing looks different. He asked during a weekend drive why unfamiliar people were trying to look over the hedges of their garden. That's a direct question from a young child trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. William handled it by reframing the intrusion as an expression of care rather than a threat. People care about your mother. They want to see how she's doing. That's a gentle reframe. It neutralizes the anxiety without lying to the child. It's actually a really thoughtful way to handle that conversation. Now let's talk about Catherine's role in all this, because the protectiveness coming from her side has been fierce. There's this moment described from Anmer Hall in Norfolk. She's standing by a window watching a security vehicle do its sweep of the boundary line. In her hands, she's holding the provisional summer state diary from the Lord Chamberlain's office. It lists all the major national events, the military fly past, the balcony appearance, the whole thing. And she takes a blue pen and crosses out her younger children's names from the attendance roster. Just like that, absolute refusal to compromise their privacy. This caused real tension. The Palace Press Office had already issued preliminary media credentials to international broadcasters who were expecting to film the kids waving from the carriage procession. The sudden withdrawal required a frantic reframing of official announcements. The explanation given to the public was routine scheduling priorities. But internally, this was a direct challenge to generations of institutional expectation. The public presence of the monarch's grandchildren at national celebrations has always been considered essential PR. It gives the media images of continuity and stability. It reassures the public that the future of the crown is secure. Catherine disrupted that entire strategy with a stroke of blue ink. And there was pushback. A closed-door briefing at Buckingham Palace happened. Senior PR consultants argued that completely removing the children from public view for an extended period would fuel internet speculation and damaging rumors. They proposed a compromise, a single, highly controlled photograph of the family in the gardens, just one image to satisfy public curiosity. Catherine rejected it instantly. Her position was that her children's private lives would not be used as currency to quiet the digital news cycle. William stood firmly behind her. He made it clear to the senior courtiers that his children's emotional security would always take precedence over the demands of the public archive. That's a significant power move, and it reveals a fundamental philosophical split between the old guard and the new household. The older generation of advisors genuinely believes that visibility is the monarchy's primary source of strength. An invisible monarchy, in their view, risks losing connection to the public. William and Catherine reject that premise entirely. They believe the long-term survival of the institution depends on the emotional health and stability of the people who will eventually inherit it. They're willing to accept short-term media criticism to protect their children's long-term well-being. That's the calculation. And honestly, when you look at what happened to the previous generation, the intense media exposure, the psychological toll it took, you can understand exactly why they're drawing this line. The logistical changes to support this protective stance are extensive. The traditional helicopter flights between residences, which aviation enthusiasts and amateur photographers track easily, have been largely replaced by long journeys and unmarked security convoys. The vehicles are equipped with electronic countermeasures to block unauthorized tracking signals. The family moves across the country without generating a trail of digital data. At Anmere Hall, physical modifications have been made. High timber acoustic fencing along the public footpaths that border the eastern paddocks, mature laurel bushes planted to increase the tree line height, effectively blocking views from elevated positions outside the property. All of this was funded from the family's private accounts, so the details stay hidden from public parliamentary expenditure reports, and the local community in Norfolk has stepped up in a way that's actually pretty touching. Shopkeepers and farmers in Great Birch have developed this tacit agreement to protect the family's privacy. If a stranger is seen loitering near the local bakery with a camera, the village network alerts estate security within minutes. That grassroots loyalty gives Catherine a level of comfort she rarely finds near London. She can take the kids on quiet morning walks through the private woodlands without the constant fear of intrusion. What's emerging from all of this is a much deeper bond between Charlotte and Louis themselves. The traditional sibling rivalries of childhood have apparently been replaced by this intense, instinctive solidarity. Charlotte's role has solidified into something beyond just being an older sister. She's become a quiet guardian, keeping watch on her brother's moods, stepping in to distract him when the external pressures weigh too heavily. Louis looks to her with absolute trust. His naturally vibrant personality is anchored by her steady presence. That's not typical sibling dynamics for kids their age. That's the product of shared adversity. And the palace is already adjusting its long-term planning around this shift. Future documents about the family's public life are being rewritten to emphasize the unified partnership of the next generation. The advisors recognize that the emotional resilience these children are building right now will form the foundation of their future service. They're being raised not as isolated individuals bound by separate royal duties, but as a tight, supportive unit capable of facing institutional pressures together. There's also this detail about Windsor Castle that caught my attention. A small grant from the Royal Collection Trust was approved for restoring a historic children's library adjacent to the private apartments the family uses during holiday periods. The timing wasn't coincidental. William's office requested the acceleration of the work to create a secure private study space where the kids can complete schoolwork away from the main administrative offices. The room was fitted with traditional oak desks and classic literature. It allows the children to remain close to their parents during periods of intensive medical treatment without requiring frequent travel between residences. Every decision is being filtered through this lens of stability and proximity. The weekends at Anmere Hall have become this complete reset for the family. Stripped of institutional formality, William leads the kids on long walks through the private woodlands, teaching Louis to identify bird migrations while Charlotte collects leaves for her nature journal. The physical space allows them to move freely without plainclothes officers hovering at their shoulders. That sense of independence had been severely curtailed, and these country weekends are where they get it back. The visits to Catherine's recovery room are no longer marked by that heavy, anxious tone from the initial announcement. Instead, the kids bring normal childhood chaos into the space. Louis displays his latest wooden building projects. William apparently built him a small workshop in one of the old outbuildings where he can use traditional tools under supervision. Charlotte shares stories about her school friends. Their voices fill the room with warmth. The core of their family life hasn't just survived this, it's actually gotten stronger. And that's really the thing that stands out when you step back and look at this whole situation. The announcement at Adelaide Cottage was devastating. The months that followed tested their domestic security to its absolute limits. The schoolyard intrusions, the digital breaches, the tension with the old guard at the palace, the constant vigilance required just to move through a normal day, all of it could have fractured this family. But it didn't. They drew closer. The internal armor hardened. The bond between those two young siblings became something exceptional. The gates of Anmere Hall stay locked against the outside world. The green SUV still uses the restricted lane at Lambrook. The digital monitoring team still scans social media around the clock. The shadow in the schoolyard isn't going anywhere. But inside those private walls, Charlotte and Louis are learning something that no amount of institutional training could ever teach them. They're learning that when everything else is uncertain, they have each other. And honestly, that might be the most valuable inheritance the crown could ever give them. I keep coming back to that wooden toy train on the rugged Adelaide Cottage, the one that got left behind when the nanny came to collect them. Because in a way, that train represents the childhood they were supposed to have, the one where Sunday afternoons just continue uninterrupted, where laughter echoes down the hallway without the weight of adult concerns pressing in, where a little boy can finish his game without the world shifting beneath his feet. That childhood didn't end completely, but it changed shape. It became something more protected, more deliberate, more fiercely guarded by parents who understand exactly what's at stake. And maybe that's the strange gift hidden inside all of this difficulty. Charlotte and Louis are growing up knowing, without any doubt, that they are loved enough to be protected. That their parents will burn down protocol, defy institutional pressure, and lock every gate in Norfolk if that's what it takes to give them space to breathe. That kind of certainty, that absolute knowledge that you come first, is rare in any family. In a royal family, it's practically revolutionary. And those two kids, walking through the private woodlands, building wooden projects in the old workshop, sitting together on the sofa while their mother recovers, they're living proof that some things matter more than the crown.